I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel retaliates after several mortar shells are fired from the Gaza Strip into Israeli territory. The Palestinian reconciliation deal comes to a standstill. And get ready, because it looks like Israel may be headed to Oscar glory. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Breaking developments on the northern Gaza border, the IDF has just launched a military retaliation after mortar shells were fired into Israeli territory from the Strip. The army has confirmed 4 Hamas targets have been hit. Israel believes this attack is payback for the terror tunnel that the army destroyed last month. 14 members of Gaza's Islamic Jihad terror group were killed in the fallout and have been threatening violence ever since. That appears to be exactly what's happening now. 15 mortar rounds were launched from the Strip at IDF soldiers who are stationed along the border. The army has immediately retaliated with both tank and air assaults. We're still waiting to see if things will calm down or if this violence is only the beginning. Well, a Palestinian man has just been shot and killed by an Israeli in the West Bank in an alleged act of self-defense. The Israeli man opened fire on a mob of Palestinians who witnesses say were attacking a group of Israeli children on a hike. The Israeli man, who was working as a security guard at the time, claims he fired in self-defense after one of the Palestinians stole one of their guns. Police, however, dispute this, confirming that no gun was stolen, contrary to his testimony. What is clear for now is that the hikers, mostly Israeli children from the Esh Kodesh outpost, were ultimately cornered by a group of Palestinians throwing rocks. Israeli witnesses at the scene say the guards' actions were indeed a necessary act of self-defense to save the kids. But human rights groups point out that the slain Palestinian man, 48-year-old Mahmoud Zael Odeh, was uninvolved in the matter, working in his nearby farm until he was fatally shot. Well, hoping to ease the suffering of citizens in Gaza, Israel has launched a special shuttle service transporting Gaza residents directly to the American consulate in Jerusalem who are hoping to travel to the United States. The first 100 Gazans just used the service for the first time, but along the way, 2 Palestinians went missing. ILTV's Aaron Pors has more on this story. So, Aaron, where did they go?
The truth is that at this time, we have no idea, which, as you can imagine, is of great concern to the Israeli authorities.
So what are the guesses as to where they may have gone?
Well, there are a few. One is that they simply wandered off into the Jerusalem area or into the West Bank or into another Arab village in Israel. And the most common, that's a pretty common occurrence when people cross into Israel from the Palestinian territories. They're looking for work or simply to escape Gaza in this case. Another possibility, however, is that they came using this shuttle service to enter Israel illegally and then possibly to perform some sort of attack. Now, of course, they were checked for security and weapons and things like that at the Israel-Gaza border. But
right, the IDF does heavy security.
Of course, especially since they were en route to the U.S. Embassy. But that doesn't rule out the possibility of going into some store and grabbing a knife or meeting up with a contact.
But again, this is all, we don't really know
exactly.
what is happening here,
know.
so this is just theory. But let's check out the rest of the details in your report.
As of now, the Israeli government only allows a small number of Gazans to travel through Israel due to security concerns, and those who do are usually passing through for medical care or other humanitarian needs. In fact, just recently, Israel had barred Gazans from entering the country for visa interviews at the U.S. consulate after some of the applicants fled into Israel or the West Bank to find work. Well, it looks like Israel is trying to find a solution for these residents, and today about 100 Palestinians were allowed to travel to the consulate. But along the way, just as feared, 2 disappeared. The State Department requires Gazans to schedule appointments over 60 days in advance for visas, but the application process is tough, requiring an Israeli security check and sometimes even an interview with Israeli security personnel. In the past, Gazans were given full one-day permits to go to the consulate, and many would take advantage to visit the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem as well, but because of so many applicants choosing to hide along the way, Israel has now implemented this new program. Hopefully, though, the track record for disappearing acts will get better.
Israel has just raided 3 Palestinian villages in the West Bank that the state believes were illegally built. This is a first step before the army demolishes the villages for good, forcing hundreds of Palestinians to relocate. Owl TV's Brett Allen Smith is here. Now, Brett, obviously this is a controversial issue. What are the specifics here?
Well, as usual, there's a lot of red tape here. Like we've seen in the past, these villages have all been slated for demolition because they were built without proper permits or legal approval. The issue, however, is that this is in Area C of the West Bank, which means that even though they're governed by the Palestinian Authority, Israel is actually the one in control of granting the permits for construction in the first place, which is why the Palestinian residents, who will all need to completely relocate and find new homes, argue that it's basically impossible to get legal permission at all.
Now, it's definitely a paradox. I mean, on one hand, just yesterday, Israel evicted a Jewish outpost because it was deemed illegal. So clearly it can go both ways. But I understand that these new Palestinian evictions have ignited quite a lot of controversy.
Absolutely. I mean, 10 Senate Democrats, 4 of whom are Jewish, actually just begged Netanyahu to not go ahead with the demolitions. They're saying that forcing these evictions threatens the chances for the Palestinians to even have their own state, and also endangers Israel's future as a Jewish democracy. Now, in general, Israel is very strict in enforcing these demolitions once they clear the proper legal channels, so it's pretty unlikely that Netanyahu is going to back down now, as you'll see in my report.
At 3 a.m. this morning, Israeli security forces began the process of razing 3 Palestinian villages in the West Bank, questioning residents and collecting ID cards. The state has been preparing for these demolitions for years now, after declaring that they were all built illegally without permission from the Israeli civilian administration. Even in the face of worldwide protest, Netanyahu's government remains committed to upholding evictions for any structures deemed illegal. But for the hundreds of Palestinian and Bedouin residents who must now find new homes, the system feels rigged from the get-go. That's because these villages are located in Area C of the West Bank, a place where the Israeli government rarely approves Palestinian requests for construction. A team of 10 Democratic American senators, including prominent Jewish lawmakers like Bernie Sanders and Dianne Feinstein, have pleaded with Netanyahu to halt the evictions, but from the look of things, it seems that Israel will be moving full steam ahead very shortly.
Now, the horrible irony of any war is that both sides can experience the same kind of loss and yet fail to see one another's pain. Well, one organization is bringing both Israeli and Palestinian families that have lost loved ones throughout the conflict together in hopes of finding a common basis for peace. Joining us now is Rami El-Hanan, the co-director of the Parent Circle, formerly known as Israeli Palestinian Bereaved Families for Peace. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what your organization does.
This is a unique organization. It's the only organization on earth that does not seek new members. The price of the ticket is too high. I lost my 14-year-old daughter 20 years ago in a suicide bombing in Jerusalem. And I joined this unique organization in an effort to create some kind of reconciliation process.
So you know, you're part of this organization with families that are both Israeli and Palestinians who are essentially coming together, and your goal is to find some sort of peace, some sort of deal that can be made, right?
Our goal is to find a way of knowing each other, of reaching out to one another, and create this understanding between one another that we will not go away. The Palestinians will not go away, the Israelis will not go away. We are doomed to stay here together. And we have to decide whether we share the land, one way or the other, or we share the graveyards under it.
Now, I understand that you actually just traveled to London to meet with members of parliament there on behalf of the organization. What did your meeting entail? What did you discuss there?
We had huge events in the UK. People are willing to listen to us. People are willing to accept us. People are very, very enthusiastic of our message, the joint message of Israeli and Palestinian bereaved families. And we were sitting in the parliament with the conservative members and liberal and the Labour Party, and people are really anxious to help, which is very encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine if they accepted you with open arms there. So I guess, you know, the final question here is, what does your organization believe is the right basis for a reconciliation process between the Israelis and the Palestinians?
We are not a political organization. We don't draw lines on maps or phrase articles of peace agreement. But we are very much political in our common denominator. We lost our kids because of the occupation. and we need to change this situation. We need to come to an agreement.
Well, I think it's, it's beautiful to see that there is, that you're coming together, that there are families coming together from both sides. Obviously, the reason is very dark, and, we're so sorry for your loss and the loss of all of these families that are involved, but it's a very noble cause that you guys are pursuing, and thank you so much for joining and telling us about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, well, for the first time in 22 years, an Israeli prime minister will attend an exclusive meeting of top-level European foreign diplomats, but officials from the EU aren't too happy because apparently Prime Minister Netanyahu snagged the invite by, inviting himself to the event behind their backs. The guest list was originally supposed to be exclusively for EU foreign diplomats, but sources say Lithuania invited Netanyahu to the pre-meeting breakfast without anyone else knowing or agreeing, basically sneaking him into the exclusive gathering. The EU foreign diplomats are apparently so annoyed that they're planning on extending a similar invitation to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, and are pledging to present Netanyahu with nothing but tough questions about Israel's policies in the Palestinian territories. The Palestinian issue will now also apparently be the top item of the day's discussion. But at least a few other EU lawmakers clearly aren't as upset. 60 members of European Parliament have actually just asked the EU to cut funding to groups that support the BDS boycott against Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu has had a complicated, if not difficult, relationship with several European nations over the years, which means the stakes are very high for this meeting with the foreign delegation, which will take place in just a few weeks' time. Well, it's almost December, which means Oscar season is officially in full swing. And it's looking like this year could be a very, very big one for Israel. That's because 2 Israelis have just been honored by the National Board of Review, one of the biggest predictors of Academy Award glory. The one and only Israeli superstar Gal Gadot has received the board's prestigious Spotlight Award for her breakout performance as Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman shattered box office history this summer and catapulted the former Israeli beauty queen to worldwide fame. But this award could very well put her in the Oscar spotlight as well. And Israel's entry for the Foreign Film Oscar just got a major boost as well. The film Foxtrot was named the year's best foreign film. Well, Foxtrot has ignited fierce controversy here in Israel for its depiction of Israeli soldiers. The film was bound for potential Oscar glory the moment it received the Silver Lion Award at the Venice Film Festival. If nominated, Foxtrot would be the first Israeli film to compete in the foreign film category in 6 years. No Israeli film has ever actually won an Oscar, but at this rate, things might be about to change at this year's awards. Joining us now in the studio is the amazing Batel Papura. Over 1 million people in Israel have already watched her inspirational show, I Am Batel, an autobiographical performance about what it means to be a 4-foot-tall little person in a big world. Now, here's a look at just one of her incredible TED Talks.
When I was 4 years old, I went outside to play with the kids in the neighborhood. And some older kids, I think they were 6 years old, pointed at me and called me a midget and laughed at me. And I really managed not to weep in the neighborhood, because if you cry in the hood, you might as well move to a different country. And I ran home to my mother and burst in tears and said, Mommy, Mommy, I'm never playing outside in the neighborhood again. They laugh at me and call me a midget. It's much safer to stay at home and watch MTV. And my mom looked at me and said, You're now going outside. And I'm locking the door. And you cannot come home until you have at least 2 friends. So I went outside, because you don't mess with the Jewish Russian mother. And she locked the door. And I came back home only after I met Rotem and Limor, my 2 best friends, throughout the entire period of elementary school.
Batel, as small as you may be in stature, I think that the stage is too small for you. Honestly, girl.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. So tell us a little about this show. I want, to hear about some of the topics that you tackle, because I haven't seen it yet, but I know I'm going to see it.
Yeah. My show, I Am Batel, is something that I've been doing for the last 3 years in Israel. I talk about all the moments in life where when I felt humiliated, and all the moments I felt great. It's a sort of a documentary stand-up which means that it's not your regular stand-up comedy performance, which you laugh in every sentence, but it's very humorous and inspirational speaking. My TED Talk, the one that we just saw, actually passed the 2 million views.
Yeah, I mean, people love hearing your story because it's so inspiring. I mean, it's clear that you're trying to send some type of message, but what would you say that main message is?
That it's no matter what shape or size you are, it's the shape of your dreams and the size of your courage to chase them that will determine how big your footprint here will be. I first started it, I didn't mean to become that. I didn't mean to become an inspirational speaker or whatever. I just wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to put myself out there and to share my experience. I was amazed that this became such a big success and that it moved so many people because...
Yeah, what are some of the reactions that you get?
At first, when I started to do this, I thought that people will talk to me about the show or about them or about me but all the time they talk to me about themselves and their own experience and their own experience of being different in this world that sometimes can be big and you can sometimes feel a bit outsider. I'm sorry if my English is not that good.
No, your English is great. Your English is great. Don't worry. I was just waiting for that laugh because you have a great laugh. So what are your hopes for the future in terms of, continuing to perform? Are you planning on going abroad? Because right now you're mainly in Israel, right?
Yeah. But interesting. This show in Israel actually made it through a certain peak. Like I already performed a lot here. And since this summer, I already translate the show in English, and I'm really looking forward to going outside to the big world and to share my story in the global community and to see if I can be as big out there as
I think
here.
you can. I think you're already making waves. I mean, you have a music video. There's your beautiful fiance. Your fiance. Congratulations, by the way.
You.
Well, Batel, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about this. And for those of you who are interested in checking her out, she has performances here in Israel and hopefully one day in...
I will go see you.
Yeah, hopefully one day.
United States.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, Batel.
Thank you.
All right, Israeli drones have just made an incredible discovery smack in the middle of an army training zone in the northern Negev desert. Experts believe they've just uncovered the remains of an ancient Idumean palace or temple that's over 2,000 years old. Just like the original Israelites, the Edomite people, later known as the Idumeans, settled all over ancient Israel throughout history. Surviving the various conquests of the Holy Land, they eventually assimilated and became Jewish, which is why finding Idumean relics or structures like these is incredibly rare. Archaeologists from Israel's Antiquities Authority have just uncovered stone incense altars, pottery, and foundational elements that suggest an entire temple or palace once stood right here, in the middle of what's now used as an IDF training area. Most spectacular of all is that experts actually figured out where to dig based on aerial camera footage taken from drones. What a perfect blend of ancient archaeology and New World technology. Over 500 people from 19 different countries will be traveling to the coastal Israeli city of Ashdod next month to take part in the 15th International Dance Sport Championships. Now, joining us in the studio is Boris Odikadze, the president of the Israeli Dance Sport Federation. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, I love what you guys are doing. Tell us about this event. What kind of dancing are we going to be seeing?
We are going to look to see the European standard dancing, ballroom dancing, and Latin American dancing also.
My favorite. I actually used to do some ballroom and Latin dancing when I was a kid, so I have a deep appreciation for this.
Yeah.
So tell us about the styles. You say Latin dancing as well.
This is two disciplines in competition program, so standard and Latin, and we have about maybe 20 different categories in a group of ages, and we have not 19 already. I have the new information, we have 23 countries
even more.
At the moment. We confirmed already, and everything is going to be very, very nice.
Absolutely. Well, I cannot wait to see this myself. I love this. Now, it's funny because you don't necessarily think of Israel when you think about this type of dancing, yet Israel is having an international championship take place here, right? So tell us about Israel's kind of relationship with this sport.
But as you said, this is the 15th edition of
right,
our
the 15th.
competition in Ashdod, only in Ashdod. And during all these years, Ashdod Open was including also the European and World Professional Championships.
Yeah.
Yes, so we have a big experience and we have a long history already because Israel as a WDSF, a World Dance Sport Federation member country, is a very active country. We are taking part in all European and World Championship in different ages and categories. For example, 2 weeks ago, we had a bronze medal in World Championship, 10 dance under 21, and 1 week ago, we had the semi-finalist of the European Championship, also 10 dance in youth categories.
Well, I think the hope is that the next story that we cover about this type of dance sport will be Israel winning another medal, right? That's a hope.
Because, it was, for example, most successful was 2015 years. We had 6 couples semi-finalists of 1 European Championship, amazing. 2 couples finalists, and 1 world champion.
All right, well, for those of our viewers who are interested in checking out what's going to be happening in Ashdod, what date is it?
This is December 9th
December
and
9th.
10th.
December 9th and 10th. All right, thank you so much for joining us, Boris, and
thank you.
Congratulations. Looking forward to seeing this.
Thank you very much.
All right, up now, ILTV's Emmanuel Knoch is here to make us hungry with Israel's top 5 best-known chefs.
Other than Israel's rich history, stunning views, and tropical weather, Israel's culinary scene is one of the best in the world. So here are the top 5 Israeli chefs. At number 1, we have Chef Asaf Gonit, whose flagship Machne Yehuda restaurant located in the market of Jerusalem has been satisfying diners since 2009. The Jerusalem native believes that part of his culinary line is rooted in his childhood city. While his dishes are out of this world, Asaf Gonit says he will always prefer the simple. At number 2 is the king of tomatoes, the actual one and only Eyal Shani. The freshness of the local produce here in the Holy Land is one of the best aspects of the Israeli culinary scene, and Eyal Shani's main focus in most of his dishes. He's known to be in love with the tomato and somehow incorporates them in all meals. He doesn't only own multiple restaurants across the country, including Abraxas, Hasalon, Miznon, and Romano. He's also a judge on MasterChef Israel. Aviv Moshe is third on our list and is the head chef at both of his fine dining restaurants, Mesa and Quattro, which happen to also be right next door to one another. Moshe describes his kitchen in Mesa as thrilling and far from simple, with a subtext of his mother's kitchen, which I wish my mother's kitchen looked like the inside of his restaurants, which were designed by foamous interior designer Alex Mitilas. The decor is stunning, but the food's even better. Sharon Cohen is fourth on our list with his famous restaurant Sheila, located in North Tel Aviv. The high-end restaurant was established 10 years ago by Sharon and his wife Adi, and since has become home to anyone and everyone who loves delicious food and a great time. Sharon Cohen focuses on using fresh, quality ingredients and has a wide variety of different dishes, most definitely worth trying more than once. Lastly, we have Chaim Cohen, head chef of his restaurant Yafo Tel Aviv, which, if any of you are confused about, is located in Tel Aviv. He credits his mother's cooking during his childhood as the main reason he grew up to become a chef. Over the past 20 years, Cohen has opened up multiple successful restaurants, including his latest, Yafo Tel Aviv, which was open on 11/11/11. If that doesn't bring good luck, his cooking sure will. That's all for today's Top 5. Back to you.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. It seems like every minute there's a new discovery here in Israel. So today's word is legalot, which means to discover. Now, in case you didn't make the connection, legalot is also where the famous Taglit Israel trips get their name. Taglit means a discovery. But legalot is also more than just physical or personal revelations in the Holy Land. It can also be used to describe information that you're figuring out for the first time. For example, last week, Ani giliti, or I discovered, that a jiffy is an actual unit of time. Yeah, apparently it's both the length of one cycle on your computer system clock, which is about 10 milliseconds, and or the amount of time it takes for light to travel 1 centimeter. Anyhow, come to Israel, and like me, you'll be surprised by what you may legalot. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy with a chance of showers along the coastal areas and a low of 54 or 12 degrees Celsius. Over the weekend, you can expect sunny skies with a rise in temperatures to highs of around 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.5 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.